Everyone, listen up. Today, the edge of our hope, at the end of our time, we have chosen not only to believe in ourselves, but in each other. Today, there's not a man nor woman in here that shall stand alone. Not today. Today we face the monsters that are at our door and bring the fight to them. Today we are canceling the apocalypse.
Joining me now is the director, I should say really legendary director of Pacific Rim, Guillermo del Toro. Welcome to the program, Guillermo.
A pleasure to be here.
We sing your praises, specifically Mark Kermode speaks of your praises every single week, and it's just fantastic to have you on the show. Introduce us to the world of Pacific Rim, please.
Well, it is a monumental sort of world creation exercise that is filled with so many small details, such attention to detail, but ultimately a mosaic of great proportions. You know, it really is sort of a tale that belongs to two genres that are revered in the East: the mecha genre and the kaiju eiga genre, meaning sort of the equivalent of the robot and giant monster genres in Japan, for example.
Yeah.
And both, the reason why I adore those genres is I was born in '64. I was born right at the explosion of the two genres. You know, Godzilla was about 10 years old, and I was there when the first mecha of importance happened in anime, Tetsujin 28. In America, I think it was called Gigantor. And this is a sort of a movie directed by a crafty 48-year-old obese man, but dreamt of the scrawny 11-year-old I was.
Yes. And is it true, Guillermo, that there was a moment when you realised, or someone told you, a moment of revelation, that no one had done a live-action giant monsters versus giant robots movie before, and you thought, well, if anyone's going to do one, it's going to be me?
Well, basically, I got an email from my agent, and every time, no matter how big the movie, most of the time when the movies come in and it's a different screenplay and I didn't write it, the emails through the years have become accustomed to start with the word pass and a question mark, because I always just pass.
Yeah.
And they sent me this treatment by Travis Beacham. We ended up co-writing the screenplay. It was 8 pages long, and I read about the kaiju and the Jaegers and all that, and I sat down and I went through my mental files of anime and manga and daikaiju and everything, and I went, no one has made this ever. I mean, I grew up with Tsuburaya's Ultraman and Ultra 7 and all that, and some stuff like Space Giants and TV. You had certain type of robot and certain type of kaiju, but no one has ever tackled that. So I went immediately to Legendary and started pitching.
Yeah. Could you describe a typical kaiju, or just one particular kaiju and one particular Jaeger, just so that we get some idea of the aliens and the robots that you're talking about?
In the film, yes.
Yes.
Both would be a very modest 25-story high stature. You know, it would be. They are both gigantic. They are basically, the kaiju subscribes to the sort of Honda Tsuburaya model of the man in suit proportions, but they are designed to be creatures that have some base on biology. You know, the kaijus generally are, you know, of a species in this genre, a crustacean, reptilian, sort of a fish or cephalopod now and then.
Right.
And these ones I tried to base like that, but then make them very outlandish and very beautiful. And they are basically living weapons of that size. They are the size of a skyscraper. And one of them is called Knifehead, for example. And the name tells you essentially its appearance. It's based very much on a goblin shark with a sort of humanoid body, incredibly heavy, incredibly muscled, and very aggressive, dark base. The color is dark graphite, sort of this metallic sheen to the black, and has this bioluminescent markings in the body. And I'll describe a Jaeger called Cherno Alpha, which is a Russian Jaeger, and it's essentially based on a T-series tank, painted very much like a T-series tank, but walks in two legs, and has a gigantic nuclear reactor for a head. It's absolutely insanely looking, beautiful. It's piloted by two Russian pilots. And, the idea was that each Jaeger would reflect a lot of its nationality. They would be very emblematic. Gypsy Danger, the main Jaeger, is a cross between the Empire State Building and John Wayne. So you can imagine.
For me, the genius of the film, Guillermo, is not just the awesome power of these creatures that you have created and designed along with your team, obviously, but the fact that I still care all the way through the film. It's a very human film, and I think one of the keys to that is that when we're inside the Jaeger, when we're inside the robot, they have the kind of language and feel of a World War II bomber crew. That's what it feels like. And and in this country, the spirit of the Blitz is what we talk about, and it has that feeling that, humanity is sort of backs to the wall.
Well, you're absolutely right about this. I mean, we took World War II as a model. As you may know or not, is a period of humanity that obsesses me, be it 1939 in Devil's Backbone or the early 40s of the fascist regime in Pan's Labyrinth or Hellboy 2 or this and that. It's a period in which I think the world changed, and it was sort of the last bout of heroism for humanity. I wanted not to make a jingoistic war movie where one country saves the entire world, but I wanted to make it about the world saving the world. I wanted to echo visually World War II. We have rationing cards, Rosie the Riveter type of outfits. All the wardrobe is based very much on pilots and workers on World War II factories. The anti-kaiju refuge is directly modeled after a World War II English anti-air bomb refuge, and we brought a lot of the language of heroics from classic adventure films and World War II films. I tried to have a language that allowed kids to, rather than identifying with firepower and testosterone, to identify with a band of losers. I didn't want to make a movie about winners and firepower and everything was glossy and new. I made a movie where everything is kind of dented and rusty and off kilter, and our heroes are incomplete unless they come together. So rather than one hero, I made it quite a choral movie where all 10 or so characters have almost the same amount of time, and each of them represents a different side of humanity: intelligence, ingenuity, self-sacrifice, and so forth.
And you don't use motion capture.
No.
Were you tempted at any stage to ring Andy Serkis and ask if he could help out?
I love Andy, and I think he's an amazing artist, but I think that when you scale things this big, and whether this is a movie that is the cup of tea of someone or not, the undeniable exercise in this movie is an exercise in scale. We really wanted to transmit to a younger generation the awe and innocence and beauty of the kaiju movies that I saw when I was a kid. And that is impossible for me with motion capture. Motion capture, I think, works up to, and I'm going to exaggerate, 30 feet tall creatures, 40 feet. These are 250 foot tall. And I wanted the weight. These are walking buildings. I wanted the weight and the shock-absorbing motion of the robots, the synergy of that much mass moving in every hit or blow or movement. And more often than not, bad computer-generated animation is evident because it seems light. It seems to be weightless, and this was not the case.
Certainly full on, right from the very first second. This isn't a movie that builds up to climactic scenes. The climactic scenes start right at the very beginning. Can I ask you about the cast as well? Because
yes,
I mean, it would be wrong to say you've gone for unknown actors. Idris Elba, who's back already on British television doing Detective Chief Inspector John Luther. He's fantastic. But did you deliberately go for people who weren't, say, Hollywood A-list?
Well, when I was given carte blanche to cast it, I made it very evident that I watched too much TV. And with Idris, I was amazed. When I met Neil Cross in New Zealand, I told him, that American actor from The Wire, my God, did he do a great work with the London accent?
Yes.
And Neil said, no, it's the opposite. He did a great job with the American accent, and I was blown away. I love Luther. I became a fan of Idris in The Wire, like everybody else, and I think it was very important to cast the movie sort of counter to normal casting in this type of movies. I didn't want to cast the sex bomb in the role of the girlfriend that gets accidentally wet every 5 minutes, wet T-shirts and all that, and I wanted to cast the leader of the resistance with great humanity, and Idris is like a living Russian realism statue or a Rodin sculpture. He's like more than human, and I went through every one of the choices, going a little bit counter, while preserving the sort of type of character that makes these movies work with a large audience. I kept those type characters, but I tried to push them in a different direction each.
Having not been in the director's chair for a few years,
Yes.
what is going to be next for you, Guillermo? Our listeners are asking about H.P. Lovecraft or Hellboy 3, or what is it it's taking your
Well,
fancy?
I was out of the director's chair exactly the same amount of years that Charlie's character was out of a Jaeger. And I'm coming back after Pacific Rim. I'm doing the pilot for The Strain, the TV series for Fox, and I'm doing immediately Crimson Peak with Jessica Chastain, Charlie Hunnam, Benedict Cumberbatch, and Mia Wasikowska, and that's a really, really classic gothic romance ghost story set in the turn of the century. It's a much smaller movie, fully character-oriented, and much more compressed, so it's a little bit of a technical breather for me, and then I'm unemployed again next year.
I don't suppose that'll last for long. Guillermo del Toro, we appreciate your time. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.